I shouldn't have lingered when she walked past me, but I did. There was something in the way she moved, unhurried, almost reluctant to be seen, yet impossible to ignore. She didn't command attention the way younger women did. She drew it in without asking, like a quiet song you only realize you've been listening to when it stops. Her name was Elena. She was 20 years older than me, maybe more, but every year looked like it belonged exactly where it was, as if time itself respected her. She stepped into the empty lobby of the community center with a stack of folders tucked against her chest. Rain slid down the tall windows behind her, coating the glass in trembling streaks of silver. I tried not to stare. I failed. She noticed. "You're here early," she said, voice low, carrying that mix of warmth and distance I had never heard in anyone else. "I didn't want to be late." My reply came flat, too quick. My heartbeat wasn't steady. I could feel it in my throat. She set the folders on the reception desk, brushed a wet strand of hair from her cheek, and for a moment, just a moment, our eyes held. I expected her to look away. She didn't. Something tightened in the air between us, pulling every sound out of the room. No voices. No footsteps in the hall. Just her breathing, my breathing, and the soft ticking of the clock above the door. "Did you lock up after the last class?" she asked softly, though we both knew that wasn't really what she meant. "Yeah," I said. "It's just us." She hesitated. Her hand, resting on the desk, curled slightly as though she were catching herself from reaching toward me. I stepped closer, not because I meant to, but because something in me moved before thought could interfere. I could smell her perfume. Not floral. Not sweet. Warm. Subtle. Like cedar warming under sunlight. She exhaled, her voice softer this time. "You shouldn't go out of your way for me." "I didn't," I said. A lie so thin it almost vanished as I spoke it. Her lips curved, not a smile, not quite, but something that felt like she had just heard every word I didn't say. "You're kind," she replied, as if that were a warning. "You're assuming kindness is my reason for being here," I said. Silence. Her eyes softened. Not with a reaction, more like a memory. She looked at me the way someone looks at a photograph before putting it back into a drawer they promised themselves they would never open again. "Elena," I started. She blinked. A small movement, but it felt like the closing of a door. "You're young," she said carefully. You don't need to look at me like that." "What way?" "Like you see something worth staying for." My chest tightened, not with hurt, but with the wild, unsteady knowledge that she had already felt me drawing closer, and she hadn't stepped away. "I didn't choose how I look at you," I said. Her breath caught, not loud, not obvious, but I heard it. Rain deepened against the windows. A drop slid down the glass, tracing a slow path to the sill. Her fingers brushed the desk again, then the edge of a folder, then stopped just inches from my hand. She didn't move it away. The lights flickered overhead with a soft electric hum. I felt her gaze on me, not analytical, not inspecting, but as if she were trying, against her will, to remember what it felt like to be wanted. Genuinely. Without apology. "Elena," I said again, her name unsteady on my tongue this time. She opened her mouth to speak, but before a single word could escape, the door behind us clicked. Someone was coming in. And she still hadn't moved her hand away. The door creaked open, and the spell shattered. Elena stepped back, leaving a cool pocket of air where her warmth had been. A woman from the front office poked her head in, apologized, and disappeared just as quickly. But the damage was done. Elena wouldn't look at me again. Not fully. She gathered the folders, composing herself with practiced grace. I watched the shift, the tightening in her posture, the return of that careful distance. I had seen it before. The first time we spoke, she wore that same invisible armor. She had been married once. I didn't know much, only what I overheard in quiet, unfinished conversations. A husband who left. No children. Years spent building something that crumbled beneath her anyway. Since then, she moved through life as if everything could be taken at any moment, so she refused to let anything in deeply enough to lose it. But still, sometimes, when she didn't know I was watching, I saw that flicker. The smallest echo of want. "Could you help me carry these?" she asked, already moving toward the hallway. I followed beside her, just close enough to feel the faint brush of her sleeve against my arm. We reached the back room where she stored her materials. It was quiet, the kind of quiet that made every movement sound amplified, the soft slide of paper, the subtle sound of her breathing. I set down the stack. She reached for the top folder at the same time I did. Our fingers touched. It wasn't an accident. Or if it was, either of us treated it like one. Her hand stayed against mine a second longer than necessary. A pause. A question neither of us dared speak. Then she slipped away. "I shouldn't involve you in these things," she murmured. "These things? My responsibilities. My life. Maybe I want to be involved." She gave a strained breath of disbelief. "You don't know what you're saying." "I do." "You're 23. I let the number hang in the air. And you're 45. She flinched, so subtly anyone else would have missed it, but I didn't. "That's not—" Her voice caught. She pressed her lips together, closing off everything she almost said. "You think I haven't thought about it," she whispered finally. "Every time you look at me that way, every time you stand too close, I have to remind myself not to." She stopped. My pulse roared in my ears. "Not to what?" Her eyes locked onto mine then. No more running. No hiding. Just raw honesty, edged with fear. "Not to forget what this would cost you." The words should have pushed me away. Instead, they pulled me closer than anything ever had. "Elena," I said softly, stepping forward, not touching her, just close enough to feel the warmth radiating off her skin. "What if I already know the cost?" Her breath trembled. I watched her chest rise and fall, watched the way her eyes dropped to my mouth before snapping back to my eyes with quiet panic. She didn't speak. She just stood there, caught between leaving and leaning in. And for the first time, she didn't step back. The silence between us was fragile, like the thinnest layer of ice over deep, dark water. One movement, one breath too loud, and everything beneath us would break open. Elena stood so close I could see the faint pulse at her throat. Her hand hovered at her side, fingers flexing, as if fighting the urge to reach for me. I could feel her breath against my lips, warm, uneven. No words. Only that quiet, suspended moment. A buzz shattered it. Her phone. The screen lit on the desk behind me. She closed her eyes with a quiet exhale, stepping away as though her body had been released from invisible gravity. I turned, catching her reflection in the dark glass of the window. Her posture was rigid now, expression unreadable as she checked the phone. "It's Mira," she said, her voice too level. I knew Mira, her closest friend at the center. The one who always joked about setting Elena up with someone appropriate. "Is she coming in?" I asked, pulse still racing. "She's 5 minutes away." Elena set the phone down. "We shouldn't be here alone when she arrives." She meant together. She didn't say it, but the meaning was sharp as glass. I nodded, but I didn't move. Neither did she. In the reflection, I watched her watching me. A mirror of everything we were refusing to face. Finally, she turned away to organize folders that didn't need organizing. I stepped closer, slowly, giving her time to stop me. She didn't. "Elena," I said quietly. She paused. "I don't want to pretend this isn't happening." Her hands stilled mid-motion. For a heartbeat, she didn't breathe. "It can't happen," she replied, barely a whisper. "But it is." She turned then, fully, completely. Her eyes were no longer distant. They were alive, blazing with emotion she had kept locked away. "It's wrong," she said, but it came out soft. "Broken. People will talk. They'll say I'm desperate. That you're naive. They'll think I don't care what they think." She gave a quiet, humorless laugh. You will. I stepped in front of her, close enough that the edge of the desk pressed lightly against my hip. The room felt smaller. Or maybe we just took up more space together now. Every time I try to ignore this, I said, voice low, it gets harder. Her eyes flicked to my mouth again. 1 second. 2. Then she inhaled sharply and backed away, only to run into a chair. I moved automatically, hands reaching to steady her. My fingers brushed her waist. She froze. So did I. We stayed like that, her breath catching, my hands barely touching her, heat building in the inches of space between us. Tell me to stop, I whispered. She didn't. Her eyes closed, lashes trembling. Then, the front door clicked. Voices. Myra's laugh echoed down the hall. Elena stepped away so fast the chair rocked. She pressed a hand over her heart, turning her face from mine just as Mira pushed open the door. There you two are! Mira chirped. What's going on? Elena didn't answer. But her hand, still at her side, trembled. And for the first time, she didn't try to hide it. I don't remember what Mira said. I don't remember leaving the room or walking down the hallway. All I remember is Elena's silence, how it followed me long after I stepped outside. Night had fallen. The rain had stopped, but everything still glistened under the dim parking lot lights. I stood by my car, hands on the cold metal, trying to breathe. The door behind me opened. I didn't have to turn. I knew it was her. Her footsteps slowed as she approached, stopping a few feet away. Not close enough to touch. Close enough to feel. I didn't thank you, she said quietly, for helping earlier. That's not what you came out here to say. The wind caught her hair, lifting a strand across her cheek. She didn't brush it away. Elena. I turned to her fully now. This isn't going away. Her eyes glistened, not with tears, but some deeper, unspoken ache. It has to. It won't. She took a slow breath, as if steadying herself. You don't understand. I know where this leads. I've lived long enough to know how it ends. What if you're wrong? I'm not. Her voice broke, just enough to undo me completely. You think this is about age. It's not. It's about time. I've already lived my mistakes. You're about to make yours. That's not your choice to make for me. She closed the space between us suddenly, an involuntary movement, like her body gave up resisting before her mind did. 1 step. 2. Now she was close. Too close. Her breath mingled with mine. You deserve someone who can still give you a future, she whispered. Not someone already haunted by their past. I lifted my hand slowly, like asking permission. My fingertips traced a loose strand of hair from her face, tucking it gently behind her ear. She didn't move away. My hand lingered, brushing against her cheek. Her eyes fluttered shut. Her lips parted, breath unsteady. Elena, I said softly. Stop telling me what I deserve. Let me choose. Her eyes opened. Raw. Unprotected. I can't do this, she breathed. And yet, she didn't step back. You already are. Something in her broke, not loudly, but quietly, like glass cracking beneath soft pressure. She pressed her hand to my chest, fingers curling into my shirt, not pulling me closer, not pushing me away. Just holding on. I think about you, she admitted, barely audible. More than I should. When I'm alone. When I'm supposed to be working. When I'm trying to sleep. The world stopped. Lightning didn't strike. The earth didn't shake. But my entire life shifted in that sentence. I covered her hand with mine. Her pulse raced under my fingertips. You're not alone in that, I whispered. She looked up at me then, a single glance that said everything she'd been trying not to feel. Her other hand lifted, trembling slightly as she reached toward my face, fingers near my jaw. Just as her thumb brushed my skin, the sound of a car door slamming across the lot shattered the moment. We both froze. But this time, she didn't step away. She stayed. Her hand still on my face. her lips inches from mine. And in the quiet between us, she leaned in. Her breath was warm against my skin. Her lips, so close I could feel the space between us thinning, were about to touch mine when... "Elena!" The voice echoed sharply across the lot. She jolted back as if burned. I turned to see Mira frozen by her car door, eyes wide, face pale with something I'd never seen in her before. Realization. Not suspicion. Not confusion. Recognition. She had seen enough. "Elena," Mira said again, but this time quieter, almost pleading. "We need to talk." Elena's hand, still suspended midair from where she had nearly touched me, slowly lowered. She didn't meet my eyes. Not out of shame, something deeper. Older. Fear that she had never allowed anyone else to see. "I'll call you," she whispered to me without looking, before walking toward Mira. But Mira didn't wait. She turned and walked quickly toward the building, expecting Elena to follow, which she did. Not once did Elena look back at me. Hours passed. I didn't leave. I couldn't. Her office light was still on. The center was closed. Only her car and mine remained in the lot. The air smelled of wet pavement and pine. I could hear the distant hum of traffic, the chirping of crickets. But above it all, I heard my heartbeat. Finally, the door opened. Elena stepped out. She walked slowly toward me, wrapped in her coat like armor. "Mira knows," she said, stopping a few feet away. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled at her sides. "She's known for weeks. She heard us, that night in the archives room." I remembered that night. We barely spoke. But the silence between us had been alive. "She confronted me," Elena continued. "She told me I was being selfish. She said you'd get hurt. That I'd be the reason your life gets smaller instead of bigger." I took a step forward. "Did you agree with her?" Her eyes lifted to mine, shimmering in the low light. "I told her she was right." The words were a knife, but I didn't step back. Elena's jaw clenched. Her breath caught. "But when I said it," she whispered, "I realized I wasn't trying to protect you. I was trying to protect myself." Silence. A tremor moved through her, barely perceptible, but I felt it in my own chest like a mirror reaction. "I haven't let anyone close in years," she said, voice raw. "Not because no one tried. Because I didn't want to want anyone. Wanting means losing." She looked away then, blinking hard at the pavement, before forcing herself to meet my eyes. "But for the first time, I want anyway." The earth stopped turning. The air between us pulsed. I stepped forward until I was close enough to feel the heat radiating off her. "Not touching. Not yet." "Elena," I said softly, "tell me what you want." Her chest rose and fell with shallow, uneven breaths. Her lips parted. Her hands, hanging at her sides, curled into fists as if anchoring herself to the moment. Then, with no hesitation left in her voice, she answered, "I want you." She closed the remaining distance. Her hand slid up my chest, trembling but firm, until it rested just beneath my collarbone. Her thumb brushed my skin. She was choosing. And this time. She didn't step back. She didn't look away. Not this time. The sound of her breath, the slight tremor in her hand resting against my chest, the closeness of her body, it all converged into something undeniable. The night pressed in around us, quiet, almost reverent, as if the world itself were holding its breath, waiting for our decision. "You want me," I repeated softly. The words weren't a question. They were a truth finally spoken aloud. "Yes," she whispered, voice almost breaking. "And it terrifies me." I lifted my hand, slow and deliberate, letting the back of my fingers graze her cheek. She leaned into the touch, not dramatically, not desperately, just enough to tell me she'd stopped fighting herself. "You don't have to be afraid," I murmured. "I do," she replied instantly, eyes locked on mine. "Wanting you means I have something to lose again." I stepped closer, closing the last inch between us. Her breath mingled with mine. Our foreheads nearly touched. Every nerve in my body was alive, humming with the awareness of her warmth, her scent, the faint tremble beneath her calm facade. Then let me be something you risk, I said. Not something you run from. Her lips parted, as if to answer, but no sound came out. Instead, she exhaled shakily, as if letting go of a breath held for years. The wind stirred. Her hair lifted against my cheek. My hand slid gently behind her neck, not pulling her in, just holding, just grounding. She closed her eyes. For a suspended heartbeat, either of us moved. Then, her hand, still pressed to my chest, slid upward toward my collar, gripping the fabric. She leaned in, almost imperceptibly. Her forehead rested against mine. A quiet surrender. This will change everything, she whispered. It already has. A silence settled, heavy, certain, full of gravity. No hesitation left between us. Then, with the softest movement, almost reverent, she lifted her face. Her lips hovered just a breath from mine. Not touching. Just knowing. I choose you, she said softly, each word a vow. My breath left me all at once. And then, she closed the final gap. Not with a rush, desperate motion, but with quiet certainty, like she was finally stepping into her own truth. Her hand slid to the side of my face, thumb trembling against my skin. I didn't move. I didn't deepen the moment. I just let it be. Let her lead. Let her choose without being chased. The kiss began not with contact, but with intention. And in that suspended moment, right before our lips touched, I understood, this wasn't about desire anymore. It was about choosing each other, fully, knowing the cost. She drew in a shaky breath. And the world, as I knew it, waited on the edge of our first touch, just before everything changed forever. Her lips finally met mine, not with hunger, but with a feeling so deep and fragile it made my chest ache. It wasn't a kiss fueled by impatience. It was slow. Careful. Like she was learning me, not consuming me. As if the moment wasn't about passion alone, but trust. Allowing someone in. After years of refusing to. When she finally pulled away, her forehead rested against mine. Her breath came unsteady. My hands were still at her waist, not tightening, not pulling, just there. Holding her in the quiet. I'm scared, she whispered. I know. But I'm not walking away. My eyes closed on a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. I lifted one hand and gently tucked her hair behind her ear. You don't have to promise me anything, I said. I don't need you to know exactly where this leads. She looked up. Her eyes were softer than I'd ever seen them, no longer guarded, just real. Then what do you need? Just stay. A silence passed. Not tense anymore, but full. Complete. She nodded once. Then, in a quiet act more intimate than any kiss, she took my hand and pressed it gently over her heart. Then stay with me, too, she said. Not because I'm fragile. Not because you think I need saving. Stay because I make you choose me. You don't make me choose, I murmured. I want to. Her eyes glistened again, not with sadness, but release. Acceptance. A slow smile, small and trembling, formed on her lips. She stepped closer, wrapping her arms around me, not in passion, but in something deeper. Her head rested against my shoulder. I felt her exhale, long, relieved, like the sound of someone finally putting down something heavy they had carried for years. I held her. Not tightly. Just right. Enough to let her know she was safe. We didn't speak for a long time. The parking lot was still. The world around us quiet. But in that ordinary silence, everything had changed. Eventually, she tilted her head back to look at me. People will talk, she said. They always do. They'll say I'm too old for you. So let them talk, I replied, thumb brushing across the back of her hand. They don't get to feel what I feel when I look at you. She laughed softly, a real laugh this time. A sound I hadn't realized I'd been waiting for. Then she cupped my face in both hands and leaned in, placing a gentle kiss on my forehead, tender, grounding, hers. No more running. No more pretending. Just us. The night wrapped around us like a quiet promise. She threaded her fingers through mine, and we walked toward her car, not to hide, not to end anything, but simply, finally, together. And for the first time since I met her, I knew. We weren't the mistake. We were the beginning.